I really wanted to get your thoughts off the top
Yes.
about the Netflix announcement that the Vince McMahon documentary, the 6-part Vince McMahon documentary that's coming out. I think it's at the end of this month, if I recall correctly. Someone can
Yeah.
fact check me in the chat, and I'll put it up. Um,
We need
and
all the help we can get.
dates elude me. I'm old now. And
Yeah.
I just want to get your thoughts and take on it. Obviously, like we've talked about before, we're not going to touch on any just as a producer's note. We're
Yeah.
not going to talk about any of the legal implications or anything like that. We're just strictly talking about the documentary in and of itself. Travis, with the save again, September 25th is when the first day
Thanks, Trav.
comes up. But I appreciate that. But I just want to get your thoughts on it, man, and see what you think we can expect from a Vince McMahon documentary.
Brother, it's definitely going to be an interesting time, considering the WWE just signed the Netflix deal. Monday Night Raw is going to be available on Netflix now,
Yeah.
and I'm sure they agreed to this whole docu-series before everything came out. And they sat down and did 200 hours worth of interviews with Vince McMahon. So
Crazy.
I'm sure they went into this deal, the documentary, and went into this Netflix Raw deal, not envisioning in the least everything that's happening now. So,
Sure.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see if WWE even gives it one single mention. There's going to be an interesting dynamic there, and maybe an interesting tension between Netflix, the new home overall, and wanting them to promote this docuseries, and Vince and WWE trying to be as far away from this docuseries as possible because they're trying to move forward. They did
Yeah.
the right thing and moved forward. So, I had a lot of friends, well, not a lot of folks on my social medias going, well, is this going to be a puff piece or is it going to be hard hitting?
Mm.
And then they come out and say, hey, this is about the rise and the fall of Vince McMahon. So it'll be interesting. And I was going to watch it anyway,
Yeah.
like I just said, I'm a documentary junkie when we're talking about the Philly Captains documentary that's coming out, the turnaround, and how I'll watch documentaries on anything.
Yeah.
So just to see this docuseries on Vince, 6 1-hour episodes, 6 hours worth of content. I mean, Vice did a sort of kind of documentary on Vince a couple years ago, and it wasn't that good.
Yeah.
So, and the folks behind the Vince documentary, Simmons, can't think
Yeah.
of
It's
his
Bill
name.
Simmons. Bill
Bill Simmons.
Simmons and the guy who did Tiger King. I can't remember his name off the top of my
So
head.
you got the folks who brought you Tiger King and Bill Simmons, who is one of the guys behind ESPN 30 for 30. One of my favorite sports documentary series. So it's going to be a good documentary. I think Bill Simmons also did the Andre the Giant documentary for HBO. So yeah, it'll definitely be interesting. What do you think? What do you take?
I mean, it's hard because I agree with a lot of what you're saying, right? I think for me, and like I've listened to some commentary on it, but I've tried to like purposefully stay away from commentary on it and just kind of like make my own decision about documentaries and films in general. But Eric Bischoff had a good take on it. I don't think at all that the documentary folks, whoever's actually like filming and producing and doing the actual like final cut on everything, I don't think they gave any kind of creative control whatsoever. I would, and Eric even said like any good documentary person would never give up creative control. So I think if they're going to tell the story like this, and it sounds like Vince kind of knew that going into it, he was like, "Hey, I know I'm not going to. This may paint me in a shitty picture, or rather paint a shitty picture of me, or put me in a bad light." Um, I would be surprised to see anything other than as close to an accurate portrayal of who the man is as you can possibly get. I expect it to be pretty grimy. I expect it to be airing a lot of secrets and things, and talking about a lot of really uncomfortable conversations and different things that happen. But it's also interesting for me because I'm a history guy. Like from that perspective, I'm very interested to see some of the things I may not really know about him, or the inner workings of WWF when it first started, or the really, maybe are they going to cover the time when he purchased WWF from his dad? Like I'm curious to see
I'm sure.
where that goes.
I'm confident. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
confident they'll do that. But
Yeah, I
it's
think it's
definitely interesting.
like I said, I think it's, for me, it's just a matter of trying to figure out like exactly where. I think even with anything like this, it's like, where do you start with a story this big? Because he's arguably one of the most, at least in entertainment, I feel like one of the most notable people that's ever really done anything.
Yeah,
And so I'm curious as to where you even start with that kind of stuff. But I'm excited. I'm excited. And again, it's like you said, it's one of those things I would have watched regardless. And I'm looking forward to watching it.
yeah. I mean, when you think about pro wrestling in the '80s, WWF was Americana. That boom period. Pro wrestling has always been a huge part of television.
Yeah,
Going back to the Dumont network. When the infancy of television, pro wrestling's always been there, but it always had the stigma, of being lowbrow and everything. And Vince did what he could to bring it into the mainstream, and he became the PT Barnum of professional wrestling, and brought it to the masses, and made it to where people go, "Oh, I like wrestling," and have the scarlet letter put on them for being a pro wrestling fan. But
yeah, of
that said, doesn't excuse what is alleged.
course.
Hopefully not true. But again, like I said, I'm reserving any judgment until the dust settles, because there's been so many times I've commented on things, and well, I wish I knew that before I opened up my big fat mouth, kind of thing.
Right, right. But I think
But
it also, it doesn't serve us any purpose to talk about it on the air as it is. You know what I mean? Like it's not. I would prefer to just leave it as simple as, you know we're aware and we're waiting for the legal system to do its thing, and that's it. And that we
yeah,
don't need to go any farther than where we are there.
right.
But I am excited about it. I'm looking forward to it. And thank you again, Travis, for giving us a September 25th. Going to go to some of the commentaries here in the chat because there's a lot of conflicting opinions here, and I'm curious to see what everybody thinks. Chris Smith, Andrew Herms, I apologize. I probably fucked your name up. I'm sorry. Chris Smith and Bill Simmons. Yes, and Simmons did do the Andre documentary. The Andre
Awesome.
documentary is fantastic. Was an
Sh-
incredible watch.
Shed a few
So
man tears on that one.
yeah, that was a great one. Lucha says, I think it's Netflix playing devil's advocate, having a burn piece on McMahon and then hosting Raw in January. I think, if you want my honest opinion, man, I think all of this was independent of that Netflix deal. I really do. I don't think it was. I think it was like it was just a random happenstance. I don't think one had anything to do with the other. I think it just so happened that Netflix probably gave as in everything, right? If the easiest answer is probably the right one. They probably just had the best bid and the best, idea for what they wanted to do. Um, Travis says WWE is not trying to make Vince look good anymore. At the same time, certain information could be very damning for WWE. Will be interesting to see. Yeah,
Yeah.
curious to see what comes from this. But if you have any differentiating opinions, leave them in the comments. Let us know. Tweet them at us. We'd love to talk about it and get your idea and pick your brain. But yeah, that is it for Vince. And we'll as we watch the episodes and we get more information and we get a better idea of what's going on,